And we are back with yet another edition of the Manliness Venture. In today's episode, we're going to continue our series on what it means to be a man. Welcome back, gentlemen. I'm Dantes, and this video is the third installment of a series on the meaning of manhood. If you missed any of the other videos, check the description down below. I'll put links in there for the other two. So today we're going to be talking about the male imperative to procreate. Now, if this doesn't seem applicable to your 21st century mind on a series on manhood, just consider the fact that until very recently, the joining of two adults have very real implications for the multiplication of their family. Now, I'm not saying that said adult activity is only for the purpose of multiplication, but I am saying that until very recently, with the invention of contraceptives, the likelihood of a baby being born out of this adult activity was much, much higher than it is today. Our Western society has divorced the tango from the baby making, so if you think that procreation isn't that big a deal nowadays, you are partially right. But if you consider that the separation is fairly recent, you can begin to see that your ancestral drive to get to know somebody biblically comes from a desire to pass on your genes. And that desire goes all the way back to our parents in the garden when God told them to fill the earth and to subdue it. Historically, it has been essential that a man expand his lineage because more babies means more workers and more soldiers, and eventually even more babies. And because of all of those people, a society can remain and maybe even expand. But definitely without babies, a society dies.
Since women stop being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
And I find it really interesting that not only throughout history is there a giant weight put on procreation, but even in a lot of cultures today, you can see that procreation is still a big deal for both men and women. It is imperative for both femininity and masculinity. For example, according to Professor David Gilmour, who wrote Manhood in the Making, until very recently in Italy, only a wife's pregnancy could sustain her husband's manhood. Essentially, the pregnancy was the receipt to prove that he could do what he was supposed to do in bed. Ma dai, Babo, ma certo, of course she's pregnant. Of course. If you think that this is outrageous, just think about how many commercials are directed at men to make them better in bed. And remember that the two-person push-up is supposed to be heavily linked with pregnancy. We can pretend that procreation isn't as big a deal today as it was in the past, but the fact remains that the mattress dance is something that is constantly brought up in our society.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Alright, so I've opened your mind to the fact that baby making is just as important nowadays for manhood as it was in the past. So where do we go from here? What do we do? Well, if you are married, have babies. Pass on your genes, take care of them, and leave a legacy. Now, at this moment, I must say that some couples are just infertile, and that's something very difficult that God has called them to walk through. But the good thing is that these people can still adopt and enjoy the blessings of parenthood. So if you're one of those people, that's what I encourage you to do. Either way, as men, we grow a lot in parenting. It's in our nature to want that relationship, to want to pass that on. And so I encourage you to go ahead and do that. But if you're not married, don't do that yet. Work on yourself first. Work on being a better provider and a better protector. Because first of all, a woman will hardly mate with a deadbeat, especially one with no potential in her eyes. But second of all, it's much better for you if you start a family after you've gotten married.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
And speaking of things that are better for you, if you haven't found a lady, make sure that you don't make women the center of your life. Don't make chasing a woman and finding a woman the central thing about you. That is just a really bad situation, and it's not gonna help you in anything in life. We as men do have to pursue a woman, but that is because that shows her hindbrain that you have a commitment to her and the offsprings that you could possibly make in the future. But to make women the #1 priority in your life is an extremely grave error. Focus on improving yourself. Don't be selfish, but become a better version of you.
Do it!
So there you have it, the 3 P's of manhood: protect, provide, and procreate. all are extremely important to manfully live life, even if our society thinks that it has left these things behind. If you like this series, consider sharing it with a friend that you think will get something out of it. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and until next time, man up.